Welcome to this chess video. On this channel, we're focused on constantly learning and improving our chess, and this tier list is no exception. We're going to be looking at some of the most popular chess variants, and we'll be ranking these in instructional value. In other words, playing these variants can help you learn regular chess, and so which ones are better? I got these alphabetically sorted, and so very first we have 3 check. I'm not going to be going over all the rules in this video for all of these variants, but with 3 check, you can win by checking 3 times, and although this might be entertaining, this can kind of get your mind working in a different direction, and can actually hurt your regular chess. So I have to give this fun variant the very lowest category of D. And next we have 4-player chess, which I actually really like this variant. It's not my go-to variant, but I play it fairly often. Now as far as instructional value goes, I actually really like this one a lot, and I think it's probably either A or S. It's debatable, but I'm actually going to stretch it to S. I think this is really good. And the reason it's so helpful is not only having more armies on the board make you more aware of different threats, but also the strategy to win is not too much different from regular chess. We can get into the nuances of this perhaps in a different video, if people are interested, but I do think 4-player chess, at least for once or twice, is pretty helpful for learning. And so now we get to the ancient Indian version of 4-player chess. Chatruji, I think is how it's pronounced. And so I'm going to put this one as A. I don't think it's quite as instructional as our modern 4-player chess. The board is a little bit smaller, and there's less things to keep track of, which is good for beginners. But because of the awkward orientation of each army in relation to each other, I think 4-player chess gets an S, because it more closely resembles the standard setup in our modern day chess. So the next variant here, we have atomic chess, and although this might be interesting, blowing up all the pieces around a capture just really is too different from regular chess, and so I really just have to give this the lowest value of D. Next variant, we have Bug House, which is exactly the same thing as Crazy House, except it's teams. So there's 2 people on a team, sometimes called doubles. There's a little bit of teamwork in this variant. I actually like the extra strategy being able to drop new pieces onto the board, specifically pieces that were captured, but because of the team element, I think probably Bug House is maybe like C category. So I'm going to put it in that, and we'll head on to the next one. Crazy House, when we get to it, is probably going to be a little bit higher, probably about B when we get there. Next we have Capture Anything, which is just like regular chess, except your own pieces can capture each other. So if you ever got yourself into a cramped position and just wished that a certain piece wasn't there, well now you actually can do that. But in this variant, I'm going to probably give it about a B. It's not the worst variant out there because it is fairly regular to standard chess, and you don't really want to be capturing your own pieces usually. But I will say that one other fun element about this game is that checkmate is actually a little bit more difficult, because very often your opponent will have their own pieces helping box in their king, and so with this variant it's a lot harder to checkmate in the center of the board. You almost have to imagine that their pieces are not there because their king can always capture one of their own pieces to escape. So this might actually kind of help people think a little bit differently about how to checkmate, and that might actually help them, especially beginners. So when you get into a regular game of chess, checkmate will be slightly easier for you. I'm going to say about B, probably fair for this variant. And now we get to Chaturanga, which is the original ancient version of chess from India that has evolved into what is now modern day chess. Now this variant I actually really like a lot. This is probably one of my go-to variants when I play. And so I'm going to have to put this as S. Not just because I like it so much, but because I do think its value can actually extend to regular chess. Probably the biggest element of strategy, which you don't really consider, is the Furts, which is the piece that looks like a queen. It can only move like a bishop, but only 1 square at a time. But what's interesting is that White's queen piece and Black's queen piece start on opposite colors. And so what that means is it's confined to that color complex. By the start of the game, one side will have more dominance on that color complex, and the other side will have more dominance on the other side. If you look at it from that perspective, it really helps you kind of think more concretely in regular chess when you have situations like opposite color bishops. Let me know in the YouTube comments if you want me to do a more in-depth strategy guide on how I play Chaturanga. But next we're going to go to Courier chess. And so this one is a little bit bigger than your regular chessboard as far as how it goes a little wider. Few extra pieces on the board. I'm going to give it an A because I think it's close enough to regular chess, but a little bit different. It's almost like a blend of some of the Chaturanga pieces and regular chess. But if you want a fun variant to play that mixes things up a little bit, this is still fairly instructional in my opinion. So next we get to Crazy House, and as I mentioned earlier, I'll probably give this about a B. It is a different strategy to be able to drop literally new pieces onto the board if they were captured previously, but it's also close enough to regular chess that it's still fairly instructional. It just gets you thinking in a different creative way, and sometimes that creativity and thinking outside the box can help with your regular chess. Even if you can't drop new pieces onto the board in regular chess, the creative mindset might help you with more creative attacks and similar strategies that you might play. So next we get to another fun variant, which is duck chess. Now duck chess is interesting in the sense that after you move, you can drop down this duck, which is basically like this brick, blocks anything from moving to there. So it also kind of helps you think what your opponent's best move in response to yours is, and how you can potentially block their best move. But some of the other strategies involving this does kind of ruin the game of regular chess a little bit. So I can't give it like an S or an A, but I do think duck chess probably gets about a B as far as instructional value. So next we have Fischer Random Chess, sometimes called Live 960 or 960 chess. And this one's definitely an S. Just no doubt about it. This is probably the most important variant. If you're going to pick a variant that helps your regular chess, I would argue this might be it. I made a chess video specifically on this variant and why it's actually helpful. And so if you want some advice on how to play Fischer Random Chess really well, you can check out this video here. I'll have the link in the video description, but that's what the thumbnail looks like. And so next variant we have Fog of War, which is actually really cool. I think it's kind of fun to do something different, but for instructional value goes, literally not being able to see half the board is just too different, and a little bit more of memory game than regular chess. At least with regular chess, you can see all of the pieces. With this, you kind of have to keep track of where everything is mentally, which is an interesting element, but not necessarily transferable for regular chess. So I'd probably have to give this variant a D, and we'll just have to skip and go to the next one. So the next variant is Horde, which I know is pretty popular on Lichess. Actually, all of these variants that I'm ranking here can be played on chess.com. Just go to the variant section there. If you want to make it easy, I'll put a link to it in my video description. But as far as instructional value for Horde goes, as entertaining as it isn't really super instructional. It's not the worst, but it's not the best either. I'd probably give it like a C. It does certainly teach you how to use the pawns, and how to play against them. But with one side literally not even having a king, it's pretty clear that this is very different from regular chess. Next up we have King of the Hill, sometimes abbreviated as Koth. And this variant I'm actually going to give an A. Very close to an S in my opinion actually. But I'll probably give this one an A. And the reason why is because when you start playing this a few times, you'll realize that it's extremely similar to regular chess. A lot of beginners will try and rush their king out to the center of the board, because if they can get their king in one of the center 4 squares, they just instantly win the game. Almost like the Yu-Gi-Oh equivalent of being hit with Exodia. And it might be tempting to go for this immediately, but especially with the other pieces like knights and pawns defending the center, you really have very little chance to getting your king actually in the center and winning. You'll get your king close, but not in the middle. And if it's not in the middle of the board, it doesn't mean anything. So very often, you'll probably castle just like you do in regular chess, or at the very least, keep your king safe. And you'll just keep developing pieces, keep playing regularly, and then when you think the time is right, you bring out your king approaching the endgame. And this is actually instructional, because in regular chess, it's very similar to that. Unfortunately, you don't really get to play too much of an endgame, because as soon as you get to the king in the center, the game is over. But it's still a pretty cool chess variant out there. So the next variant is Mini House, and yes, this is the entire size of the board. It is pretty small. It is kind of fun, but I'll have to give this one a D. I don't think its skills are really too transferable to regular chess. Even closed positions don't quite operate exactly how this does. So it doesn't even really help you with that. Now we kind of go the other side of the spectrum, something that's really close to chess, which is no castling, which is literally the exact same board and rules as regular chess, except for the very obvious rule that neither side can castle. Which, if I'm not mistaken, castling was only introduced to chess in the 1600s. So basically, this is like playing chess before castling was invented. I'm going to give this one an A. Not only because of how similar it is to regular chess, but also because it really helps illustrate the importance of king safety. And when neither side can castle, you really have to think creatively about where your king is best, and how many moves you want to invest to get your king out of the harm's way of the center. Also, for those who don't know, when castling first came out, it was actually 2 moves, where the first move you could move your king over 2 spaces, and then the very next move you were obligated to move the rook around the king. So nowadays, be grateful that not only you can castle, but also it only costs you 1 turn in chess. So next chess variant, we have Petrified. But I think one reason I stopped playing Petrified was just it was a little bit different than regular chess, and there weren't as many people to play. But it was a pretty fun variant. As fun as it was, I'd probably have to give this about a B as far as instructional value. Captures in that variant turn your pieces to stone, and then you literally have to move around them. So towards the end of the game, it can be a pretty close chess position. So although it might help you a little bit with close positions, it's just also a little bit too different. I don't want to get too deep into that, but for instructional value, I'd give it about a B. And so next we get to another fun variant, which I haven't played in a while, which is Racing Kings. I think this should have been over here, but okay. It doesn't matter, I'll just pick it up. I probably have to give this one about a C. Cool to be both sides racing in the same direction to the other side of the chessboard. But a lot of the strategy is just simply blocking the opponent's king while trying to advance your own pieces, and the opponent doing the same. It's a cool variant, but not really too transferable to regular chess. Doesn't hurt you, which is why I don't give it a D, but it's also not too helpful, and so I think a C is an appropriate ranking. Okay, now back in order over here, the next one is Setup Chess, which I think used to be called something like Automate Chess, which is actually pretty helpful because it really teaches the value of how a lot of your minor pieces, meaning your knights and bishops, can work together and specifically play better in certain positions. Because in this variant, you have to weigh the pros and cons when you're setting up the pieces, and if you want something like a queen, very often you'll actually prefer the minor pieces, and I wouldn't recommend having any more than 1 queen in this variant. And a lot of players choose not to use the queen at all. So it's a pretty cool concept for a different variant. I'll probably give it about a B. This next one is pretty fun as well. This one is Sideways Pawns. I'd probably have to give it about a C for instructional value. But it is pretty cool to be moving your pawn down the board, and then it just goes 1 file to the left or right. And so now you don't have to worry about having isolated pawns or doubled pawns being as big of a problem as it normally would in chess. You'll just literally shift yourself a file over, and no problem whatsoever. So the end game and a little bit of the strategy of your pawns completely changes because of this one little rule. Now we get to a variant a lot of people are probably waiting for, which is Spell Chess. Definitely a lot of videos on this variant when it came out, a lot of entertaining streams and funny reactions, but as cool as this variant is, and I really do like the board design, I probably have to give it about a C for instructional value. Having potions to make your pieces jump over your own pieces, or freeze pieces in a certain range, is just too different from regular chess to me to really make it that instructional. Next we get to Torpedo Chess, where the pawns can move 1 or 2 squares, but that's always, not just their first move, so the pawns can really take off quickly like a torpedo. It's a fun variant to play, but I'll probably have to give it a D for instructional value. The pawns just simply run quickly and then get to promote, but everything else is more or less the same. You just have to be careful because pawns are pretty much worth a little bit more than they usually would because of their ability to move further. And the last variant that we're judging here is extra large chess, which as the name implies is a really huge board. You can see by how small the squares are in comparison to the others I showed. It was the only way I could really fit it on the screen. But perhaps this is a little bit too big, and so I'll probably give this one a C. I've noticed that when you play variants like extra large chess, that have just a much larger board than regular chess, sometimes it takes a while for your eyes to adjust when you go back to regular chess. It seems like the standard chessboard just seems so small in comparison to this. So it's a fun variant to play, but don't be playing this right before you have an over-the-board tournament. So now let's try and rearrange some of these, just to make sure I got all these right. I think all of these are probably about the right category. I don't think I'm going to change what ranking I gave. I think we did pretty good in the first try. But I would like to maybe shuffle these around as far as which ones are more instructional than others. So let's go with S here. So left being more important. I think Live 960 is probably the most important variant as far as learning. And so do check out that video afterwards if you get a chance. I really do like Chaturanga. And both that and 4-player chess can really help you a lot. Which one is better? It's really close. Maybe Chaturanga I like a little bit more for instructional value, because so much of it really is very similar. At the very least, you don't have to worry about as many players as 4-player chess. But really, all 3 of these variants here at the S tier are S tier for a reason. I do think that all of those, if you want to pick up a new variant, either of these 3 are probably good choices. So next we go to the A range, and I think King of the Hill is probably the most instructional out of these. Then probably followed by No Castling. And I think the order is good now. The ancient version of 4-player chess, probably a little bit higher than Courier chess. But I think they're definitely well-deserved in the A tier range. So now we get to B. And I actually kind of like it exactly how it is. I think right in this order, I think we actually nailed it. Maybe Crazy House and Capture Anything. You could kind of debate between switching between. But I think it's actually good word. I think Capture Anything may be slightly more instructional. But both of them are pretty good. And I think these are all set. So let's just go on to C range here. I think Sideways Pawns is probably a little better. Maybe then extra large chess. I might even move Horde up one. And then I think the rest are fine. With Bug House, Racing Kings, and then Spell Chess. Maybe I could even move Spell Chess a little above Racing Kings. But I think all of these are definitely in the C range. And so we should just go on to the next one. Now for the D tier, I think 3 check is probably the best of these. Maybe then Torpedo. Probably followed by Mini House. And yeah, I think Atomic just keeps getting pushed further and further back. I think Fog of War might be a little more instructional than Atomic. So I'm pretty happy with that one being the very last in our list. Now there's also a few other variants I chose not to do. Names have changed a little over the years, but there's what basically Giveaway, Elimination, and other chess variants that were just a little bit too different that I didn't think were really worth adding to this list. It would probably be like a D or even an E range, would have to add like another tier. And also there were some variants that were too similar. Like there was also Blindfold Chess, which is really just regular chess. So I thought it was too close to regular chess to count it. And there were even a few chess variants that chess.com does not yet offer, such as Omega Chess, Millennium Chess, or even something like 4D Chess. Now one last note is there is another one which I would really like to see added to chess.com as a variant, which I'm sure most people know, that is Hand and Brain. It might be a little difficult to implement as a regular thing on the website or for one of the variants in the variant section, but I think it would be really cool. If that does come out, or even before it comes out, I may even consider doing a video just on Hand and Brain alone. That would definitely be in the S tier as far as how helpful that variant is applied to regular chess. But I think I like the ranking system we chose right now. I think this is pretty accurate. And so let me know what you think in the comments. Were there some variants that I missed you would like to see me go over? Do you think my ranking system was pretty accurate? Keep in mind this is not how much fun I have, because some of these variants at the bottom are very fun. But this ranking system is about how instructional they are and how much you can learn in relation to regular chess while enjoying these chess variants. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. I'll see you in the next chess video.